My name's Helen Mitchell, and I'm the kind of person who double-checks everything, spreadsheets, door locks, even the oven timer when I'm baking. It's not just because I'm a fraud investigator in Atlanta, poring over corporate accounts to catch hidden scams. It's who I am, wired to make sure things add up. That's why I was standing in my mother Clara's kitchen in suburban Atlanta, holding a pecan pie I'd spent all night perfecting, using her old recipe with that extra pinch of cinnamon she swore made it sing. The drive from my downtown apartment had been a slog, 3 hours through Georgia's thick November fog, but I didn't mind. Thanksgiving at Mom's was my anchor, the one day our family came together, no matter what. Or so I thought. The kitchen smelled like roasted turkey and sage, the table set with Mom's good plates, the ones she only used once a year. My sister Hannah was fussing with the napkins, her blonde hair pulled into a messy bun, while my brother Max carved a practice slice off the bird, muttering about the electric knife. Mom was at the counter, arranging sweet potato casserole, her hands moving with the quiet grace I'd always loved. It was picture perfect, the kind of scene you'd see in a holiday movie. I was still smiling, still holding that pie, when everything fell apart. Helen. My father's voice cut through the chatter, sharp and low. Except it wasn't my father. Dad passed when I was 16, leaving Mom to raise us alone. It was Max, stepping into that role like he always did when he wanted to sound serious. We need to talk about Mom's money. The $40,000 that's gone. I blinked, the pie tin warm in my hands. What are you talking about? He didn't flinch, just leaned against the counter, arms crossed. It disappeared last month, right after you set up her online banking. So either you give it back or don't bother coming home again. The room went quiet, like someone had flipped a switch. Hannah stopped folding napkins, her hands frozen mid-motion. Mom didn't turn around, just kept spooning casserole, her shoulders stiff. I looked from one to the other, waiting for someone to laugh, to say it was a bad joke. But no one did. Hannah's eyes flicked to the floor, and Max's jaw tightened, like he was bracing for a fight. The pie felt heavier, the tin pressing into my palms like it might crack. "Excuse me?" I said, my voice thinner than I meant it to be. "You think I stole from Mom?" Hannah finally looked up, her green eyes sharp with something I couldn't name. Anger, maybe, or guilt. "The bank said it was withdrawn online. You're the one who set up her account, Helen. You walked her through it, remember? The passwords, the app, all of it." My mouth opened, but nothing came out. It was true. I'd helped Mom go digital a month ago. She'd been nervous, said she didn't trust computers holding her money. I'd sat with her at this very table, walked her through the app, showed her how to set security questions. She'd even jotted her password in her little spiral notebook, the one she kept in the kitchen drawer. But steal from her? The idea was so absurd it felt like a punch. "Mom," I said, turning to her, waiting for her to say something, anything. She didn't look at me, just picked up a dish towel and pressed it to her hands, like she was wiping away something I couldn't see. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just Max and Hannah. Mom believed it too. The pie tin clicked softly as I set it on the counter. My coat was still draped over a chair from when I'd walked in. I grabbed it, my hands moving before my brain caught up. "You have until Friday," Max said behind me, his voice low, like he was doing me a favor. "Then we call the lawyer." I didn't answer. I couldn't. The kitchen, the table, the smell of turkey, it all felt like someone else's life. I walked out, the screen door creaking behind me, and got into my car. The pie stayed on the counter, untouched, like a promise I couldn't keep. I drove until the streetlights blurred, my coat still half-buttoned, the heat in my car barely cutting through the November chill. I didn't cry or scream or slam the steering wheel like I'd seen in movies. I just kept driving, past the paper turkeys taped to neighbors' windows, past the glow of porch lights, and the faint smell of wood smoke in the air. Thanksgiving night in Atlanta's suburbs felt too peaceful, too normal. For the knot in my chest, I ended up at a motel off the highway, one I'd passed 100 times, but never had a reason to stop at. The clerk slid me a key without asking questions, and I was grateful for it. The room smelled like stale coffee and cheap air freshener, the kind that tries too hard to cover something up. I kicked off my boots, sat on the edge of the bed, and let my hands shake. I was 35, a senior fraud investigator trusted to untangle million-dollar corporate schemes, and my own family thought I'd stolen from them. The worst part? It didn't shock me as much as it should have. There'd been signs, little cracks I'd ignored because I wanted to believe we were still a unit. Growing up, Mom held us together after Dad died, working double shifts as a schoolteacher, making sure we had enough even when the bills piled up. I was the oldest, so I stepped up, cooking dinners, helping Hannah and Max with homework. But as I got older, I wanted more. I earned a scholarship to Georgia State, moved to the city, built a career. Hannah and Max stayed closer to home, and somewhere along the line, my success became a wedge. Hannah would roll her eyes when Mom bragged about my promotions, muttering about my fancy job. Max once asked if I thought auditing was real work, like turning wrenches wasn't. Last Christmas, when I offered to pay for Mom's car repairs, Hannah snapped that I was showing off. I laughed it off, thought they were just teasing. But now, sitting in that motel room, staring at the peeling wallpaper, I saw it for what it was, resentment, simmering for years. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. A text from Hannah. Asterisk, we didn't want to do this, Helen, but you made it hard to trust you. Asterisk, no. Happy Thanksgiving. No, are you okay? Just that, like I'd betrayed them. I turned the phone face down, my stomach twisting. At work, I spend my days chasing paper trails, hidden transfers, fake invoices, accounts that don't add up. I know what it looks like when someone's been set up. And right now, I was the fall guy in my own family story. I lay back, the mattress creaking under me, and stared at the ceiling. I replayed that day with Mom, setting up her account. Every click, every password, every note in that spiral notebook. The drawer where she kept it was never locked. Anyone could have opened it. Hannah still crashed at Mom's house when her latest job fell through. Max had a key, came by to fix things when Mom called. They'd both been around. I'd helped Mom, sure, but I wasn't the only one who knew her details. The thought hit me like a spark in the dark. Someone had used my help as a cover. They'd waited until I set up the app, then pointed the finger at me. My family didn't just distrust me. They'd built a case against me. I sat up, my heart pounding. If they wanted to treat me like the villain, fine. I'd spent years catching liars for a living. It was time to start investigating like one. The motel coffee was bitter, brewed in a machine that looked older than me, but it was enough to keep me awake the next morning. I sat at the wobbly desk, my laptop open, the screen's glow cutting through the dim room. My hands weren't shaking anymore. They were steady, like they get when I'm chasing a lead at work. I'd spent years untangling corporate fraud, finding money that was supposed to be gone. If my family thought I'd roll over and take the blame, they'd forgotten who I was. I thought about Mom, about the way she'd pressed the dish towel to her hands instead of looking at me. She'd always been the glue, the one who made us feel like a family even when Dad was gone. I remembered her staying up late to sew my Halloween costume, a witch's hat that kept falling off, while Hannah and Max fought over the last piece of candy. I'd always been the one to keep the peace, to make sure everyone got a fair share. But last night, no one had given me a chance to explain. They decided I was guilty before I even walked through the door. I opened a new tab and logged into my work portal. My firm had been digging into a string of elder fraud cases, retirees losing savings to slick scams, accounts drained in ways that looked clean at first glance. One bank kept popping up, Peach State Credit Union, Mom's bank. I hadn't told my family about the case. It was confidential, and they never asked about my work anyway. But now it felt like more than a coincidence that I sent a message to James Smith, my colleague and the compliance officer on the case. He was the kind of guy who could find a needle in a haystack of data and still crack a joke about it. I kept it vague, just Mom's name, the date range, and the bank's Atlanta branch. While I waited, I paced the room, my boots scuffing the worn carpet. I kept seeing Hannah's face, the way her eyes darted away when Max made the accusation. I kept hearing Max's voice, so sure, like he'd rehearsed it. And Mom. Her silence hurt the most, like a door slamming shut. My laptop pinged. James had sent a file, transaction logs, timestamps, and a link to security footage. I opened it, my pulse picking up. 3 withdrawals from Mom's account, spread over a week, $15, $12,000, $13,000. All in person, not online. My breath caught. They'd said it was me, that I'd used the app one setup. But in-person withdrawals meant someone walked into that bank with mom's ID. And it wasn't me. That I clicked the footage link, my heart in my throat. The video was grainy, but I didn't need HD to know what I was seeing. A woman with Hannah's messy bun and nervous fidgeting, handing over a card at the teller window. Then Max, calm as ever, chatting up the cashier like he was buying coffee. They thought they were clever, but they weren't invisible. I leaned back, the chair creaking under me. This wasn't a mistake. This was a plan. And I was done being their scapegoat. The motel room felt smaller as I dug deeper, the hum of the mini fridge mixing with the tap of my fingers on the keyboard. The security footage was still open on my laptop, frozen on Hannah's face as she slid mom's ID across the counter. I'd watched my sister grow up, watched her paint her nails with my markers, cry over boys who didn't deserve her. Now here she was, stealing from our mother and pointing the finger at me. Max was no better, his easy smile in the second clip like he didn't have a care in the world. I wanted to be angry, but all I felt was a hollow ache, like I'd lost something I couldn't name. I rewatched the footage, noting every detail. October, first withdrawal, Hannah, wearing a gray hoodie, glancing over her shoulder like she expected someone to stop her. Second withdrawal, Max, in a flannel shirt, laughing with the teller as he signed a slip. Third, Hannah again, same hoodie, different sunglasses, her hands steadier this time. The arrogance of it made my skin crawl. They hadn't just taken the money. They'd planned it, used my help with mom's account as a smokescreen, but I needed more than footage to prove it. I cross-checked the transaction logs James sent. The withdrawals were spaced out, each just under the amount that would trigger a federal report. Smart, but not smart enough. Then I dug into the account metadata. The first login after I'd set up mom's app didn't come from her phone. It came from a tablet on the home Wi-Fi, the same network Hannah used to binge her shows. The one-time password for recovery was sent to an email I hadn't set up, linked to a phone number I recognized. Max's. I leaned back, the pieces clicking together. A month ago, Mom had a health scare. Routine tests at Emory Hospital. Nothing serious, but Hannah had stayed with her overnight. Mom's purse was there the whole time. Her checkbook, her driver's license, her bank statements. That's where it started. They'd gotten her details, waited for me to set up the app, then made their move, knowing I'd be the easy target. The successful sister, the one who had it all. I called James, keeping my voice steady. Can you pull the teller signatures from those withdrawals? I need them for comparison. Helen, you okay? He asked, his voice soft with concern. James had been at the firm longer than me, always had my back when cases got rough. But I couldn't tell him everything. Not yet. I'm fine, I lied. Just send the signatures. They arrived within the hour, scanned copies of the withdrawal slips. I pulled a note Hannah had left on Mom's fridge last month, a grocery list in her loopy scrawl. The signatures matched, down to the way she dotted her I's. Max's was there too, his blocky print unmistakable from the car repair estimates he'd sent Mom. It was airtight, the kind of evidence I'd present in a boardroom. But this wasn't a boardroom. This was my family. I closed my laptop and pulled out a black folder from my suitcase, the kind I used for court exhibits. I printed the footage stills at the motel's business center, grainy but clear enough, and tucked them inside with the signatures. My hands moved on autopilot, years of building cases taking over. But my heart was racing, not with triumph, but with dread. I wasn't just proving my innocence. I was about to unravel everything I thought my family was. Monday afternoon, I drove back to Mom's house, the Atlanta suburbs bathed in that golden light that hits just before winter settles in. The black folder sat on the passenger seat, heavy with truth I wasn't sure I wanted to share. I'd spent my career exposing liars, but these weren't strangers. They were the people I'd shared birthdays and secrets with. Still, I couldn't let them rewrite who I was. I parked at the curb, Mom's old sedan and Hannah's beat-up hatchback crowding the driveway. No guests, just family. The air smelled like fallen leaves and chimney smoke, but it didn't feel like home anymore. I walked up the porch steps, the folder tucked under my arm, and let myself in. The house smelled like cornbread and collards, the kind of meal Mom made when she needed comfort. Voices drifted from the kitchen, Hannah's laugh, Max's low grumble, Mom's soft hum. I stepped into the doorway, and the room went still. Hannah was perched on a stool, sipping iced tea. Max leaned against the fridge, a beer in hand. Mom was at the sink, scrubbing a pan, her back to me. They looked up, and for a moment, it was like I was a stranger. "Helen?" Mom's voice was small, like she wasn't sure I was real. Hannah's smile faded, and Max set his beer down, slow and deliberate. I didn't say anything at first. I walked to the kitchen island, where we used to make gingerbread houses as kids, and set the folder down. The thud felt louder than it was. "You said I stole from Mom," I said, my voice steady despite the tightness in my chest. "Let me show you what really happened." I opened the folder, pulling out the first still, a grainy shot of Hannah at the Peach State Credit Union, her hoodie and sunglasses not hiding the way she fidgeted. "October, $15,000, I said, laying it on the island. "In person, not online." No one moved. I slid out the next one, Max, smiling at the teller like he was charming his way through. 5 days later, $12,000. Then the third, Hannah again, bolder this time, and $13,000. Hannah's glass slipped an inch in her hand, tea sloshing. Max's face was blank, but his knuckles whitened around the bottle. Mom turned, her hands dripping soap suds, her eyes flicking to the photos. I laid out the teller slips next, the signatures side by side with Hannah's grocery list and Max's repair estimate. "These match your handwriting," I said, looking at Hannah. "And yours, Max." The air felt heavy, like a storm was about to break. Hannah opened her mouth, then closed it. Finally, she spoke, her voice thin. "You went digging through our stuff?" I tilted my head, keeping my voice soft. "You went through Mom's." Mom stepped closer, her eyes scanning the papers, her hands trembling. "The bank said it was online," she whispered, like she was trying to hold on to the lie. "They were wrong," I said. "The withdrawals were in person. The online access came later from your home Wi-Fi, using a recovery email tied to Max's phone." I pointed to the metadata printout, my finger steady, even as my heart wasn't. "You used Mom's ID from her purse, didn't you? When she was in the hospital." Hannah's face twisted, not with guilt but something uglier. "You always get everything, Helen," she spat. "The big job, Mom's praise, everyone thinking you're perfect. I just wanted it to be fair for once." I stared at her, the sister I'd helped with algebra homework, the one I'd driven to her first job interview. "Fair," I said. "You framed me." Max cleared his throat, his voice flat. "It wasn't personal, Helen. You've got money. Mom'll be fine." I let out a breath, the words cutting deeper than I expected. It's always personal when it's family. Mom sank into a chair, the folder open in front of her. Her hands rested in her lap, empty, like she didn't know how to hold this truth. "You let me believe my daughter stole from me," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Not looking at any of us. The room was silent, the kind of quiet that presses against your skin. I'd come to clear my name, but standing there, I realized I'd lost something bigger. They hadn't just taken Mom's money. They'd taken the family I thought we were. I stood in Mom's kitchen, the folder still open on the island, the truth laid bare like a wound nobody wanted to touch. Hannah stared at the floor, her fingers twisting the hem of her shirt. Max shifted, his beer forgotten on the counter. Mom's eyes were fixed on the photos, her face pale, like she was seeing her kids for the first time. I wanted to feel vindicated, but all I felt was tired, like I'd been carrying this weight for years and only just realized it. "Helen," Mom started, her voice cracking. "I didn't know. I should've." "Don't," I said, softer than I meant to. "You didn't ask me if I did it. That's what hurts." I looked at Hannah, then Max. "You told me not to come back unless I gave the money back. I didn't take it, but I brought you this instead." I closed the folder, the snap of it loud in the quiet. "I'm not pressing charges," I said, my voice steady now, the investigator in me taking over. but I've sent copies of everything to the family lawyer. You can figure out what happens next." Hannah's head snapped up, her eyes wide. "You're turning us in?" "No," I said. "I'm letting you face what you did. That's enough." Max stepped forward, his hands raised like he could talk his way out. "Helen, come on. We're family. We can work this out." I shook my head, the ache in my chest spreading. "Family doesn't do this." I looked at Mom, her hands clasped so tight her knuckles were white. "I'm sorry, Mom. I wanted to protect you, not break this apart." She reached for me, her fingers brushing my arm, but I stepped back. "Helen, please," she whispered. "Stay. We can fix this." I wanted to believe her. I wanted to sit at that table, eat cornbread, pretend we could go back to being the family that laughed over burnt marshmallows and argued over board games. But the truth was heavier than that. They'd chosen to believe I was a thief before they'd even asked me. "That wasn't something you fixed with a hug." I picked up the folder, my keys jangling in my pocket. "Thanksgiving's over," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "You made sure of that." I walked out, the screen door creaking behind me, just like it had a few nights ago. The air was cool, the street quiet except for the rustle of leaves. I got in my car, the folder on the seat beside me, and sat there for a moment, watching the kitchen window. The lights stayed on, but no one came out. No one ran down the driveway to stop me. And that, more than anything, told me what I needed to know. That I drove away, the Atlanta skyline faint in the distance, a reminder of the life I'd built on my own. I didn't look back. Back in my Atlanta apartment, the city felt louder, sharper, like I was seeing it through new eyes. I went to work the next day, diving into audits like nothing had happened, but the truth was, I wasn't the same. My desk was still cluttered with case files, my coffee mug still had that chip from when I dropped it last summer, but something inside me had shifted. I'd always thought family was the one thing you could count on no matter what. Now, I wasn't so sure that I stopped calling Mom on Sundays, let the family group chat go silent on my phone. A voicemail from her sat unopened for days, the little red icon blinking like a warning. When I finally listened, her voice was soft, broken. "Helen, we were wrong. I was wrong. I didn't want to believe it was them, but I should have trusted you. I'm so sorry. The house feels empty without you." She hung up before saying anything else, like she didn't know how to finish. A week later, a letter arrived, real paper, not an email. Inside was a photo from when we were kids, me, Hannah, and Max on Mom's porch, dressed in Halloween costumes. I was a witch, my hat lopsided. Hannah had glittery fairy wings. Max was a pirate with a plastic sword. On the back, in Mom's neat handwriting, was one line. Asterisk, we didn't know how much we'd miss you until you were gone. Asterisk, no signature, just that I heard through a cousin that Hannah and Max had moved out of Mom's house. Mom told them she needed space, that she couldn't look at them the same way. I didn't ask for details, didn't want to know what they were doing or where they'd gone. It wasn't about revenge, it was about protecting what little piece I had left. I kept the photo, though, tucked it into a drawer with old birthday cards and a recipe for Mom's pecan pie. I didn't look at it again, but I couldn't throw it away either. The holidays came and went without our usual traditions. No tree, no calls, no goofy ornaments we'd swap every year. I spent Christmas Eve working late, the office quiet except for the hum of the heater. There was a grief I hadn't expected, not for the family I'd lost, but for the one I'd thought we were. They'd chosen a version of me that wasn't real, and once they made that choice, there was no going back. I started sleeping with the TV on, the low murmur of late-night shows drowning out the silence. But I wasn't broken. I'd spent years building a life I was proud of, catching thieves who thought they could hide. If my family couldn't see who I was, that was their loss, not mine. Still, the ache lingered, like a bruise you don't notice until you press it. Winter settled over Atlanta, the city sparkling with holiday lights. I didn't feel like celebrating. I threw myself into work, untangling fraud cases with a focus I hadn't had before. But the folder from that night, the one with the bank footage and signatures, stayed in a drawer under old tax forms, a reminder of what I'd walked away from. I didn't open it again. I didn't need to. The truth was carved into me now, Sharp and clear. Point one Saturday, I signed up to teach a workshop at a community center in Decatur, a program I'd started for seniors about protecting their finances. It wasn't glamorous, just a folding table, a projector, and a room full of retirees sipping coffee from styrofoam cups. I taught them how to spot phishing emails, secure their accounts, check their statements. Simple stuff, but it mattered. After one session, an older woman named Ruth stayed behind, her hands clutching a worn purse. "You remind me of my daughter," she said, her smile soft. "She's always looking out for me." I nodded, my throat tight. "I wish I had a mom who saw that," I said, half to myself. She patted my hand, and for the first time in weeks, I felt something like hope. The workshop became my anchor, a way to turn the pain into something useful. I'd lost my family, but I could help others keep from losing what mattered to them. Every time I explained a scam or showed someone how to freeze their account, I thought of Mom, of how I'd tried to protect her and how it hadn't been enough. It wasn't about fixing the past, it was about building something new, something mine. The grief didn't go away, not completely. There were nights I'd drive by a house with a porch light on and think of Mom's kitchen, the way it used to smell like cinnamon and love. But I didn't call her. I didn't answer her letter. I'd spent years trying to hold my family together, but they'd chosen to break it. I had to choose myself now, and I'm still Helen Mitchell, the woman who double-checks everything, who catches liars for a living. But I'm also the woman who walked away from a lie and built something true. I don't know if my family will ever understand that, but I do. And that's enough. To everyone who's followed this story, thank you. You've walked with me through betrayal, truth, and the fight to find my way back. If this hit you where it hurts or made you cheer, hit that subscribe button and join me. Every story I tell is about facing the hard stuff and coming out stronger. Keep building your own truth, and I'll meet you right here for the next one.